It was just another quiet night at the hospital until I checked the security cameras and saw myself walking alone down a hallway I had never entered. "Playback?" I asked, half to the empty nurse station, half to the old monitor that hummed like a beehive. The clock above the med cart read 0241. The timestamp on the feed matched to the second. Live. The West Wing corridor on screen was a place we didn't use anymore. Paint bubbled from a spring flood 2 winters back, drywall cut open and never repaired. Access was sealed with a fire door, badge reader disabled. No reason to monitor it, except facilities never pulled the camera and security never stopped routing every feed to our little 12-inch relic in case management. The figure in the frame wore a white coat. My white coat. I knew the slip of the cuff where I'd snagged it on a cabinet handle, the taped ring finger I'd sprained on a combative patient last month, even the way the hem flared when I walked fast. My hair was in a loose bun tonight. On the screen, hers was the same, wisps stuck to her cheek. I glanced down at myself, gray scrubs, white coat, cracked pager, coffee stain on the lapel I never managed to lift. The coffee had dried into a tiny crescent. On the monitor, a tiny crescent rode the other coat in the exact same place. "Malik?" I picked up the station phone before I realized I didn't know what I would tell him. Security hummed from the lobby, 3 floors and a world away. I hung up. I pressed the screen button to cycle cameras, pharmacy hall quiet, visitor elevators empty, ER triage, 2 cops and a drunk asleep on a gurney, back to West Wing. I, had reached the end of the corridor where the red exit letters glowed over the sealed fire door. The badge reader beside it had been dead since the shutdown. Facilities had zip-tied the handle. On the feed, the strap around the handle hung limp, cut. The door's push bar gleamed with fresh fingerprints. I've never gone down there, and I startled at the sound of my own voice. The station smelled like what it always smelled like at 2 a.m., chlorhexidine wipes and stale coffee, and suddenly, faintly, something colder beneath it, like wet concrete. I toggled the camera to zoom. The image sharpened into grit. She stood with her back to the door, head tilted up toward the lens, as if listening. My chest tightened. No audio came through those lines. The camera predates even our oldest Pixis. Still, I felt the absurd urge to hold my breath so I could hear better. On the screen, my double raised a hand and waved. Slow, almost apologetic. Then she mouthed a word. The lag on the feed stuttered, turned her lips into frames. I leaned in until the monitor's glass fogged with my breath. "Don't." The pager at my hip buzzed hard enough to bite skin. I flinched and looked down. "Morgan, assist," scrolled across the cracked display. I swallowed and looked back up. Now she had turned sideways to the door, one shoulder pressed to the bar. The red exit letters flickered, an ancient ballast twitching its last, and came back steadier than before. The door should not have opened. It required power and a code that facilities had removed from the system months ago. She pushed. The bar depressed. The door gave on a black seam. Air moved in the corridor on the screen. Dust motes lifted and wheeled. In our station, a draft snuck under the counter and cooled my ankles. The fire door swung wider without a sound. My double stepped through into the dark. As the door closed behind her, she turned her head back toward the camera one last time. The face, my face, was too sharp for the dim. Eyes too wide, pupils blown, a sheen across the skin like someone had just stepped out of a cold shower. Her mouth formed a second word, "Stay." The feed juddered, tore into static, then returned to an empty hall. The push bar was unmarked again. The zip tie was intact. The exit letters burned steady. My pager buzzed a second time. Morgue, assist, urgent. From somewhere below the floor, as if the building itself had exhaled, I thought I heard a gurney's wheels squeal. The squeal came again, high, metallic, like ungreased casters rolling over tile. I froze, the hairs on my arms standing straight. The morgue was 2 levels down, separated from the wards by heavy fire doors and a keypad lock. No sound should have carried this far, not unless someone left the lifts open, or not unless it wasn't sound at all. I clenched the pager until my knuckles whitened. Its cracked screen still scrolled, morgue, assist, urgent. Normally, when a page came through, I'd know who sent it. Transport, security, sometimes a coroner's aide if we were unlucky. But this had no origin code, just the message, looping endlessly. "Technical glitch," I whispered, though I didn't believe it. The monitor hummed. I forced myself to cycle through feeds again. Pediatrics, quiet. ICU, dim blue lights over slumped figures. Pharmacy hallway, deserted. I flipped back to the west wing, already bracing myself. Empty. Perfectly, clinically empty. The fire door was closed. The zip tie on the handle gleamed as though it had never been touched. The corridor's light, which had flickered, now shone steady and bland. My reflection stared back in the monitor's glass. Same bun, same coffee stain, same ring finger taped. Only when I lifted my hand to rub my temple, the reflection didn't. It stayed frozen for a heartbeat too long, then caught up, the way a poor internet stream lags and then corrects. I stumbled back from the desk, knocking over a styrofoam cup. Cold coffee spread across the counter, dripping onto my notes. The stain spread like veins. The pager shrieked again, not just buzzing, but emitting a long tone I'd never heard before, loud enough to sting. I slapped it, and the noise cut. The display was new now. Level B, camera offline. My eyes darted back to the monitor. Camera 12, the morgue hall, was black. Not static, not snow, just a flat, matte darkness. A sound drifted from the stairwell behind me. Not the squeal this time, a voice. Low, tired, half-breathed. Down here. I spun, heart slamming. The stairwell door was closed, its crash bar in place, but shadows pooled around the crack of the bottom like smoke. I told myself it was just the burnt-out emergency bulb, but the shadow swelled and retreated, in and out, in time with the words. I gripped the edge of the counter until my fingertips ached. You're tired, sleep-deprived. Hallucinations happen. The pager buzzed again, soft this time. My eyes dropped unwillingly. Assist with transfer. Patient, redacted. The brackets blinked like an empty field waiting to be filled. Then, letter by letter, the screen typed out a name. My name. My breath hitched so hard I choked. The stairwell handle rattled. Just once, quick, like someone testing it. Then silence. I backed away until my hip hit the crash cart. My reflection stared from the polished steel. Same face, same wide eyes, but the reflection's lips moved on their own. I leaned closer despite myself. It mouthed a single word. Come. The pager beeped again, sharp and insistent. The screen now read, proceed to morgue, urgent. Beneath it, smaller text crawled across the display. Delays are unacceptable. My throat closed. I pressed reset, then power. The pager ignored both. It hummed like a living thing, words pulsing with the faint light. The monitor at the nurse station crackled. Camera 12, which had gone black, flickered back. The morgue hallway swam into focus. Bright overheads, tiles shining, empty. Then, movement. A gurney slid into view from the left, rolling smoothly despite the squeals I'd heard. The camera panned, on its own. None of our cameras did that. It tilted, tracking the gurney as it rolled down the hall. No one pushed it. The wheels squealed with each turn. The gurney stopped, directly beneath the camera, sheet still drawn. I leaned closer. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the sheet shifted, slowly, carefully, as though something beneath it was breathing. My stomach dropped. The pager vibrated so violently it nearly slipped from my hand. New text filled the screen. Patient ready for transfer. The timestamp below read 2:47. That was the exact time on the wall clock above my head. I glanced up and froze. The coffee stain on my coat, the one I'd noticed earlier, wasn't there anymore. I touched the lapel, blinking hard. It was gone, the fabric clean. The monitor snapped with static. My eyes shot back. The camera angle had changed again, pointing not down the morgue hall, but up, directly into the lens itself, as if another camera were watching through it. For a split second, I saw my own face staring back. Not from this room, from that one. The figure stood just at the edge of the morgue hallway, under the exit sign, looking up into the lens. Her eyes were wide, her lips forming words I couldn't hear. Then the sound came, not through the speakers, but from the stairwell behind me. Down here. The handle rattled again, harder this time. Dust drifted from the frame. I backed against the counter, pager buzzing madly in my hand. The screen flashed a new line in jagged characters, looping faster than I could read. Transfer yourself. The stairwell door creaked open, just an inch, just enough for the draft of colder air to wash over my ankles. And from deep below, echoing up through concrete and steel, came the long, steady squeal of a gurney rolling toward the stairs. The squeal climbed step by step, echoing through the stairwell like something dragging chains. I gripped the counter until my nails bent backward. My chest felt too tight for breath, each inhale catching like I'd swallowed glass. The door was still cracked, no more than an inch, but that sliver of black yawned like an open throat. The draft it breathed out smelled of rust and antiseptic gone sour. The pager buzzed again, harder than before, rattling in my palm. The screen flared with blocky text. Transfer in progress. My vision blurred. I staggered back, nearly toppling the crash cart. The reflection in its metal side showed me leaning, except my reflection was upright, calm, a faint smile pulling its mouth. When I blinked, the smile stayed, even as my lips trembled. The squeal reached the landing directly below. 1 floor away, my knees weakened. I yanked the phone off the station cradle with slick hands and dialed security. The line clicked, but what answered wasn't Malik's gruff voice. Static. Then, layered beneath it, my own. On my way down. Transfer accepted. I dropped the receiver. It swung by its cord, knocking dully against the desk. The stairwell door creaked wider. 3 inches now, enough that shadows pooled into the hall, stretching long fingers toward my shoes. A wheel bumped against the step below, then another. The sound was deliberate, patient. I grabbed the keys from my pocket and sprinted toward the staff lounge. My plan wasn't clear. Lock myself in, maybe? Just to buy time. But as I reached the lounge door and jammed the key into the lock, the monitor behind me screeched. I turned instinctively. The screen showed camera 12 again. The morgue hall. The gurney was gone, but the camera's angle had tilted upward to the ceiling. No, not the ceiling, to the vent. A face stared out from behind the vent grate. My face, gray, hollow-eyed, lips cracked into that same faint smile. It mouthed one word over and over, jerking with each syllable. Down. The stairwell door banged open. The crash echoed up and down the hall. My legs turned liquid. The pager shrieked with one final message. Patient delivered. Claim yourself. And from the stairwell, rolling into the light, came the gurney. The sheet was pulled high, tight, just as I'd seen on the feed. Its wheels squealed as it stopped dead center of the hall. The sheet shifted. A hand pressed up against the fabric from beneath, taped ring finger, just like mine. I staggered back, throat tearing with a scream I couldn't voice. The sheet slid away. I stared down at my own face, eyes wide open, staring straight into mine. My legs nearly gave out. The face beneath the sheet was mine, pale and slack, eyes open in a blank stare that mirrored my terror. The gurney's wheels rattled once, as though settling, then fell silent. For a moment, I could only stand there, chest convulsing with shallow breaths. My mind clawed for rational explanations, a prank, a mannequin, a wax teaching dummy. But the skin was too real, the hair damp with sweat, the taped finger identical to mine. And then the worst thought of all, if that's me, then who's standing here? The pager vibrated, buzzing so hard it numbed my hand. The message scrolled faster than my eyes could track. Transfer complete. Admit new patient. My throat clenched. No, I'm not. The lights above flickered. The bulbs hummed, then popped in quick succession, showering faint sparks down the corridor. One by one, the ceiling fixtures died, until only the glow above the gurney remained. My double's body shone under it, skin waxy and bloodless, but lips twitching, just enough to form a sound. A whisper escaped, dry as parchment. Stay. The stairwell behind me groaned. Footsteps echoed, slow, dragging, deliberate. I twisted my head. The shadows along the steps thickened, reshaping into a silhouette. Not mine this time. Taller, broader. A figure in hospital whites, face blurred by the gloom, pushing another empty gurney up toward me. My breath snapped into gasps. The corridor was no longer a corridor, but a funnel, narrowing, drawing me toward the body on the bed. My shoes slid as if the tiles themselves urged me forward. The reflection in the polished crash cart caught my eye again. But now it wasn't mimicking me. It was lying down, arms folded across its chest, just like the figure on the gurney. When I looked back, my double's lips had stopped moving. The whisper, though, continued all around me, bouncing from wall to wall. Stay, stay, stay. I forced myself to move. My fingers clawed at the badge clipped to my coat. If I could swipe into ICU, find someone awake, I could break this nightmare. But when I held the plastic up, the name beneath the photo wasn't mine. It was blank. The footsteps reached the landing. The second gurney rolled into view, squealing with each wheel turn. The sheet over it already bulged faintly, like something beneath was breathing. I stumbled backward, hitting the wall. Pager pressed into my palm so hard I thought it would crack bone. The screen pulsed, one final command flashing like a pulse. Claim your body. The first gurney trembled. My double's eyes snapped wide, pupils blown black, and the lips that had twitched into whispers finally spoke aloud. Shift begins now. The words rattled through me like a shock. Shift begins now. My own voice, but guttural, hollow, warped by an echo that didn't belong in human lungs. My knees buckled, slamming against the tile, the impact sending a dull jolt up my spine. The gurney in front of me vibrated, wheels squealing as though something unseen leaned into it. My body, on the mattress, my body, sat upright in one slow mechanical motion. Vertebrae cracked like dry twigs. My double's head tilted, stiff and wrong, until those lifeless eyes locked onto mine. No, the words scraped out of me like sand. Behind, the second gurney rolled closer, pushed by the taller figure that had emerged from the stairwell. Its blurred face sharpened in flashes of the failing lights. Jaw slack, teeth exposed, eyes black wells. A nurse's badge dangled from its chest. The laminated plastic cracked and faded. I strained to read it, but the lettering was worn down to nothing. Only the hospital logo remained, smeared and old. The whispers intensified. Stay, stay, stay. They seeped from the ceiling vents, from the cracks between tiles, from inside my own skull. I staggered to my feet and grabbed the crash cart, yanking it toward the hall center. Its weight steadied me, its drawers full of real metal, real tools, something solid against the madness. My fingers fumbled at the top drawer, yanking it open. The instruments gleamed faintly. Scissors, syringes, clamps. All mundane, all powerless against the thing rising to its feet before me. My double slid from the gurney, bare feet smacking the tiles. Each step echoed heavier than mine ever had. She stood inches away now, close enough that I could see condensation fogging her teeth as she mouthed words in perfect sync with my pager's display. Transfer accepted. The lights above buzzed, then died completely. Total blackness swallowed the hall, except for the green exit sign above the stairwell and the faint glow of my pager's cracked screen. Its sickly light lit her face. Her smile stretched impossibly wide. I swung the scissors from the cart in a clumsy arc. The steel cut air, not flesh. She didn't flinch, didn't even blink. The blade passed through her shoulder like mist, clattering to the floor. The metal rang too loud, too sharp, like it had hit something deeper beneath the tiles. A hand, my hand, shot out of the dark and gripped my wrist. Cold, rigid, unyielding. My bones screamed. She leaned close, lips brushing my ear. Clock in. The pager screeched, screen filling with jagged text. Room 0, report immediately. My knees buckled again, pain exploding through my wrist as her grip tightened. Somewhere behind us, the second gurney slammed into the wall with a crash. Its sheet tore open. Something inside it thrashed violently, like an animal fighting its bindings. I twisted free, skin tearing under her grasp, and stumbled toward the exit sign. The stairwell gaped open, shadows curling upward like smoke. The pager buzzed, one last time before the fall. Its display shifted into words that felt carved directly into my bones. Shift never ends. And then the floor dropped out beneath me. The fall never ended. My body dropped through blackness so absolute it erased the sense of movement itself. The air pressed against me, dense and suffocating, thick with the metallic tang of blood and antiseptic. My scream tore out of my throat but echoed back distorted, like a recording played at the monk speed. Then, impact. My knees buckled on a cold, wet surface. Water, just an inch deep, rippling outward in circles. When I steadied myself, I realized it wasn't water at all. The smell gave it away first. Copper and rot. My hands came up slick and red. Blood. The darkness around me began to breathe. Dim fluorescents flickered on one by one, stretching down an endless corridor. The walls weren't drywall anymore, but slick concrete, pipes dripping overhead. The blood pooled along the cracks in the floor, seeping toward a drain in the center. And then I heard it. The squeal of gurney wheels. Closer this time. Multiple sets. Their echoes overlapped, metal against tile, the chorus of a morgue in motion. The pager in my hand buzzed again, impossibly intact. Its cracked screen glowed a sickly green. A new message crawled across. Room 0. Arrival confirmed. My throat dried instantly. I turned in a slow circle, but the corridor stretched infinitely in both directions, lined with doors every 10 feet. Each bore a number, stenciled in black. 101, 102, 103, until my eyes caught the one directly behind me. 0. The door was metal, heavier than the rest. Its surface scarred like it had been clawed from the inside. My reflection swam faintly in the brass handle. But it wasn't me. My reflection's eyes were open too wide, its mouth already smiling. The wheels squealed louder. I whipped my head forward. At the far end of the hall, gurneys rolled into view. 3 of them. Their sheets were pulled high, shapes shifting beneath as though the bodies weren't still. No one pushed them. They moved on their own, squealing closer with every second. I gripped the pager until my hand ached. The display updated again, letters jagged like scratches. Admit new staff. The door labeled 0 groaned. Its hinges flexed, as if something behind it leaned, pushing outward. A breath slipped through the crack at the bottom, cold and damp, carrying whispers that crawled up my spine. I staggered backward toward the opposite end of the corridor, but the numbers on the doors warped as I passed. 110, 205, 318. Not in sequence, not even possible. The entire place rearranged itself like a maze I could never leave. The gurneys stopped 10 feet away. Sheets rustled. From beneath, a hand pressed up. Familiar, taped ring finger just like mine. My stomach dropped. The second gurney shifted next, revealing another hand, and the third. All 3 sets of fingers curled, beckoning. The pager buzzed so violently it cut into my palm. One last message seared the screen. Sign in. The door marked 0 burst open. Darkness billowed out, swallowing the lights, swallowing the corridor, swallowing me. And in the suffocating black, a chorus of voices. Doctors, nurses, patients, all layered into one, welcomed me in unison. Shift continues. The voices hit me like a wave, drowning every rational thought. Shift continues. Shift continues. The words weren't just sound, they pressed against my chest, crawling through my ribs, vibrating in my teeth until I thought they'd crack. The black swallowed me whole. I couldn't see my own hands, couldn't hear my own breath, only the chant. Then slowly, a dim glow seeped in. Not light exactly, something weaker, like the phosphorescence of rot in damp wood. It illuminated rows of beds stretching into infinity. Each bed held body. Doctors, nurses, orderlies. Their uniforms were stained, some ripped, some decades out of date. Their eyes were open, glassy, but every single head turned as I staggered past. Their mouths moved in perfect rhythm. Shift continues. The pager in my hand buzzed. The screen glowed with a new directive. Complete report. And just like before, a desk appeared conjured from the dark, piled with papers, each stamped with the hospital logo, each headed with staff death summary. My knees nearly buckled when I saw the name on the top file. Mine. No, I muttered, this isn't real. I shoved the folder aside, but the next one bore my name too, and the next. Page after page, identical, each recording a death that hadn't yet happened, each signed in handwriting that was mine. Something moved at the edge of my vision. A figure stepped from between the rows of beds. She wore my coat, my scrubs, and the same taped ring finger. My own face stared back at me, pale and hollow-eyed, but her lips smiled, just faintly. "You're late," she whispered. Her voice layered, not one tone, but many, as if every mouth in the ward spoke through her. I stumbled back. The pager shrieked, its cracked glass heating in my hand. The message blurred, then reformed. Admit to room 0. The walls around me groaned. At the far end of the ward, the black door materialized again, the brass 0 gleaming faintly. The air thickened, damp and sour, tugging me toward it. The beds rattled, wheels squealing, their occupants rising, sitting up in unison.
The sound of gurneys rolling again echoed, this time closer. Sheets fell away as figures stood. All of them looked like me, copies in various states of decay, some fresh, some sunken and gray, some little more than skeletons wrapped in stained scrubs. They raised their hands as one, pointing toward the door. Their chant shifted, words bending into a new command. Sign in, sign in, sign in. The pager pulsed hot, burning my skin. I dropped it. The device shattered on the tiles, sparks spitting. But even without it, the words burned behind my eyes. The door creaked open, darkness spilling out in thick waves. My doubles closed in behind me, hurting me forward. And as I stumbled toward the waiting void, the chorus grew into a roar that shook the beds, the walls, the very ground. Shift begins. The roar swelled until I thought my eardrums would burst. Shift begins. Shift begins. The voices merged into one endless howl, vibrating through the floor, rattling the metal frames of the beds. I covered my ears, but the sound burrowed past skin and bone, echoing inside my skull. The black door yawned wide. The brass 0 glowed like a furnace brand, burning against the dark. From its depths came a draft of air so cold it stole the breath from my lungs. I staggered backward, desperate to resist, but the doubles pressed closer. Their hands, my hands, brushed my shoulders, my arms, guiding me forward like I was the patient now. No, I won't go in there. The doubles tilted their heads in unison, their mouths stretching wider. They didn't speak, but the chant filled the room all the same. Sign in, sign in. I dropped to my knees, scrabbling at the floor for something, anything I could use to anchor myself. My fingers closed around the shards of the pager I had shattered. One jagged piece of glass caught the dim light. I clenched it, slicing my palm. The pain grounded me. Blood pattered onto the tiles, pooling quickly. To my horror, the floor absorbed it, pulling it into veins that spread like cracks. They stretched toward the black door, glowing faint red, pulsing in rhythm with the voices. The door fed on it. The doubles froze. Every head turned to the blood. Then, in perfect unison, they inhaled sharply. Through my teeth, my throat, my lungs. The sound hollowed me out. The beds rattled harder. Their occupants, doctors, nurses, orderlies, all began to sit up. Some still rotted, jaws hanging loose, eyes missing, but all turned to me. Their mouths opened, and instead of the chant, a new sound poured out. A recording. My own voice. Pages of it. Every note I had ever written in patient files. Orders I had given. Mistakes I had made. Every error screamed back at me by hundreds of throats. No, stop. My plea was drowned by the cacophony. My failures, my neglect, my own words filled the chamber. The black door shuddered. Its brass number flared white hot. A final message burned across the shard of pager in my hand. Letters seared in light rather than pixels. Room O awaits. The doubles leaned close, pressing their cold lips to my ears, whispering the words in sync. Clock in. The ground beneath me gave way. I dropped into the dark again, my own voice chasing me down like a curse. And this time, there was no scream, only the mechanical beep of a monitor counting down to 0. The fall ended with a jolt so violent my teeth clacked together. I landed on cold tile, sprawled out, gasping for air. When I lifted my head, I knew instantly this was not any floor I had ever seen. The corridor stretched ahead longer than the hospital's blueprint could ever allow. Walls the color of bone, paint keeling like old skin. Every 20 feet, a light flickered overhead, buzzing like a trapped insect. But worse were the doors.
Lining both sides of the hall, each bore a number carved deep into the metal. 12, 47, 213. Numbers I recognized, rooms from this hospital. Except some didn't belong. 000, 999. One door was marked only with a slash across its surface, like something had clawed it. Another bore no number at all, just my name etched in neat, deliberate letters. My breath shuddered out of me. Behind, the black door loomed shut, brass 0 glowing faint in the dark, as though daring me to try and open it again. I turned back to the hall. The air smelled of bleach, but sour, like it had been mopped over rot. The pager shards were gone. My hand bled freely, leaving a trail of red drops across the tile. I pressed the wound against my coat, but the blood didn't smear. It sank into the fabric like ink into paper. The hospital logo on my badge absorbed it, the letters bleeding until only one word remained: admitted. I stumbled forward. The nearest door, 213, groaned as I approached. My stomach clenched. I knew that number. It was the room from the beginning, the room Nazmiye had died in. The door handle turned. I staggered back. Slowly it opened, revealing a sliver of darkness. A figure stepped out. It was me again. But this version looked worse than the doubles before. Her eyes were sunken, ringed in gray, lips cracked and bleeding. She wore my coat, but the fabric was soaked, hanging heavy with black stains. She carried something in her hand, a clipboard. She smiled faintly and spoke, her voice a rasp of static. "You're behind schedule." The clipboard flipped open on its own. Papers fluttered, though no wind stirred. I glimpsed the top sheet. Staff death summary, incomplete. Under name, mine was already written. The line beneath it blinked, waiting. "I won't sign it," I whispered. Her smile widened, jagged. "You already did." She stepped closer, and the clipboard slammed into my chest. Cold shot through me, anchoring me to the floor. The pen slid into my hand, my fingers locking around it as if someone else controlled them. The beds along the corridor rattled behind the closed doors. Voices began to seep out, dozens of patients murmuring my name, over and over, building into a chant. The pen tip scratched the page, moving without my consent. One word: signed. The lights overhead blew out in sequence, plunging the corridor into darkness, one bulb at a time. And as the last one died, I felt her lips brush my ear. My own lips, my own voice. Shift continues. The darkness sealed me in like a tomb. Only the echo of the last word lingered. Shift continues. I pressed my back against the cold wall, gripping the pen that had forced itself into my hand. Its tip was still wet, though I hadn't dipped it in ink. I raised it to the faint glow of my badge, and my stomach twisted. It was blood. My blood. The clipboard was gone, but the word I had unwillingly written burned behind my eyes, seared into my mind. Signed. Somewhere down the endless corridor, a door clicked open. The sound was soft, almost polite, but in the suffocating silence, it cracked like a gunshot. My head whipped toward it. The faintest light glowed from the room labeled 0. The door swung wider, inviting. The air shifted. The smell of antiseptic thickened until it stung my nose, and beneath it, the copper tang of blood, heavier now. I heard movement, wheels, faint and steady. The sound of a gurney rolling closer. "No!" My whisper didn't reach my own ears. A pale glow spread across the floor as the gurney came into view. The sheet covering its body bulged faintly with breath. Each rise and fall matched mine. My chest tightened. When I inhaled, the sheet lifted. When I exhaled, it sank. I staggered backward until my shoulder hit a door. The number above it read, "My name." The handle twisted beneath my touch, though I hadn't moved it. The door creaked open just enough for me to see inside. A room, familiar, too familiar. White walls, scuffed linoleum, the smell of coffee and bleach, the nurse station. Except this time, the chair behind the desk wasn't empty. I was sitting there. The figure wore my coat, my scrubs, even the same taped finger. She leaned on the counter, chin in hand, smiling faintly as she watched the monitors. On the screen, a figure stumbled down an endless corridor, clutching a bloody pen, eyes wide with terror. Me. She raised her hand and waved. Slow, almost apologetic. The door slammed shut in my face. The gurney stopped at my feet. The sheet slid back, inch by inch, as if an invisible hand peeled it away. I braced myself for my own dead face again, but what I saw hollowed me out more than any corpse. It was me, alive, awake, staring back. The figure's lips moved in perfect sync with mine, but her voice came from everywhere at once. "Relieve me." The pen in my hand vibrated, pulling toward the gurney like a magnet. The badge on my chest burned, the word "admitted" glowing brighter, branding me. And from behind the door labeled 0, 1,000 voices whispered together a single verdict. Clock in. The pen jerked toward the figure on the gurney, as though invisible hands were dragging it from my grip. I clamped down harder, my knuckles whitening, but the pull grew stronger with every second. My double, alive, breathing, mirroring me, lay there with eyes wide open, pleading. Her lips trembled, mouthing again, "Relieve me." The floor shivered underfoot. A pulse ran through the tiles, syncing with the beeping of some unseen monitor. Beep, beep, beep. Each note carved deeper into my skull. It felt like the countdown of a machine I could not see, marking time until something irreversible happened. "No," I rasped. "I won't take your place." The corridor disagreed. The doors on either side flung open one after another, slamming against their frames. From each poured the same thing, echoes of me. Nurses, patients, even corpses, all of them wearing my face, my scrubs, my bloodied hands. Some dragged IV poles, others clutched clipboards. A few crawled on all fours, their mouths stretched open as if screaming, though no sound escaped. They gathered, circling the gurney and me. Their movements were jerky, unnatural, as though replayed from broken film. They began to sway, in rhythm with the monitor's beeping, creating a grotesque dance of duplicates. I pressed back against the wall, but there was no escape. The door marked with my name glowed now, the letters etched in burning red, daring me to enter. The handle rattled furiously on its own. The gurney's sheet slid fully away, and I saw it again. Me. But this time the figure's chest rose slower, faltering, as though her life force was slipping. The monitor's tone flattened, the beeps stretching longer. Beep. The doubles swayed harder, their mouths tearing open wider than a human face should allow. Finally, sound erupted from them all at once, an ear-splitting chorus of my own voice. "Sign it! Clock in! Relieve me!" The clipboard reappeared in my lap, pages fluttering, glowing faintly as though lit from within. At the top, Shift report, room 0. The rest of the sheet was blank, waiting for me to complete it. The pen burned in my fingers, drawing my hand down toward the paper. I screamed and hurled it across the floor. It clattered against tile, spinning wildly before stopping at the feet of one of my doubles. She bent, picked it up, and extended it back to me with a slow, deliberate bow. Her eyes were hollow, endless black pits. I shook my head, choking. "I won't!" The monitor gave a final, sharp tone. Flatline. The figure on the gurney, my double, sat bolt upright, her eyes locked on mine, and in a voice that couldn't be mine, she whispered, "Then I'll relieve you." The doubles surged forward as one, hands outstretched, pressing me down against the gurney, their touch ice cold, smothering. And as they pinned me, the door marked with my name burst open, light pouring out so bright it burned my eyes, pulling me into its blinding core. The light swallowed me whole. My body lifted off the gurney, weightless, pulled into the brilliance that poured from the door with my name. My skin burned, not from heat, but from the sheer intensity of being seen, stripped bare as if every secret and every sin I had buried was dragged into view.
When the glare dimmed, I was standing, not in a hallway, not even in the hospital, but in a room that felt like an imitation of both. White walls stretched outward, impossibly high, bending like they had no ceiling. A single desk sat in the center, and behind it, a figure waited. It was me again. She wore my white coat, but it was pristine, untouched, as though it had never seen blood, sweat, or grime. Her badge didn't say admitted, it read supervisor. Her gaze locked onto mine, calm but heavy, as though she already knew everything I was about to say. A thick ledger rested on the desk, pages turned by themselves, rustling in the sterile air. I stepped forward, my shoes echoing far too loudly. "What is this? Why are there so many of me?" My voice cracked. The other me tilted her head. "Every shift must be filled. Every role must be played. You knew that when you entered." I didn't agree to this." She smiled faintly, and it was worse than any scream. "You admitted yourself. No one forced you." The ledger stopped flipping. The open page bore a column of names, dozens, hundreds, all written in identical handwriting, my own. Each one struck through with a date and a time, except the last. It was blank, waiting. She slid the book toward me. The pen appeared again in my hand, slick with blood, though I hadn't touched it. "You've already signed so many times," she whispered. "One more makes no difference." "I won't." My fingers trembled, fighting the pull. The walls pulsed, bending inward, squeezing me closer to the desk. A low hum filled the air, steady as a ventilator's breath. From the whiteness around me, shadows began to form. Dozens of beds, each occupied. I recognized their faces, patients I had lost. Their eyes opened in unison, all staring at me, their voices overlapping in a chorus of, "Finish your shift!" Tears blurred my vision. I dropped the pen, but it didn't fall. It hovered, suspended, then floated back into my grip. My hand moved against my will, lowering toward the empty line. The supervisor me leaned forward. "You cannot leave a shift unfinished." I screamed, pressing back with all the strength I had left, the pen tip hovering above the paper. The walls shuddered, the patients' voices rising into a single command, "Sign!" And then the lights overhead shattered. Glass rained down like needles. The ledger slammed shut with a deafening crack. When I looked up, the supervisor's chair was empty, but the badge on my chest had changed. It no longer said admitted, it read on duty. The words on duty glowed faintly on my badge, as though etched into my skin rather than pinned to my coat.
I clawed at it, trying to tear it off, but my fingers passed through like it wasn't there at all. The room around me shifted again, walls folding in, corridors bleeding out of blank white space until I was back in the hospital. But it wasn't the same.
Every hallway was wrong, stretched too far, lit by buzzing fluorescent bulbs that flickered in jagged rhythms, like heartbeats out of sync. The air was cold, dry, filled with the faint hiss of oxygen tanks. Doors lined both sides, each marked not by numbers, but by names. My patients' names. Some I remembered clearly, others I couldn't place. Every single door whispered as I passed, voices slipping through the cracks. "Doctor, you let me go. Relieve me." My chest tightened. I hurried forward, ignoring them, though my own footsteps echoed too loud, like I was walking through a hollow chest cavity. I turned a corner and froze. The nurse's station. Except the monitors weren't showing live hallways anymore. They were showing me. Multiple angles looping endlessly. In one, I was standing frozen in this very spot. In another, I was being pinned to the gurney again. In another, I was sitting calmly at the desk, signing form after form without hesitation. The sound of scratching drew my eyes downward. On the counter lay a stack of clipboards. Their pages were filled with writing, and I recognized every stroke of the pen. It was my handwriting. Hundreds of shift reports, every one signed with my name. Some were dated decades in the past. Some were dated years into the future. The stack grew taller as I watched, papers manifesting one after another, the pens scratching invisible across their surfaces, more signatures appearing. "No," I whispered. My throat was raw. "I'm not doing this." A shadow flickered on the monitor. The me at the desk lifted her head and smiled, as if she heard me. Slowly, she raised a hand and pointed, not at the camera, but directly through it, at me. The doors behind me rattled violently. Metal clanged against metal, and from within came the pounding of fists, dozens of them. Patients I had lost, patients I couldn't save. Their voices rose into a storm, their cries overlapping. "Doctor! Doctor! Doctor!" The badge on my chest burned hot, branding into my skin. The words, "On duty," pulsed in rhythm with the pounding fists. I stumbled backward, clutching my chest, and slammed against one of the doors. It swung open. Inside, the room was filled with beds, rows upon rows, stretching into darkness, each one occupied by a body under a sheet. The air reeked of antiseptic and rot. The sheet nearest me began to rise, slowly, like something was pushing upward from beneath. My knees locked. I couldn't move. The sheet slid back. It wasn't a patient. It was me. My face, pale and waxen, eyes glassy but fixed on mine. My corpse opened its mouth, and in my own ruined voice it whispered, "Your shift is just beginning." My corpse's lips barely moved, but the words cut into me sharper than any scalpel. "Your shift is just beginning." The air turned heavy, pressing down on my chest until each breath scraped like glass. I staggered backward, colliding with another bed. Sheets shifted, more figures stirring. One by one, the bodies beneath them sat upright. Dozens of me, dead versions, bloated, burned, rotted, each reflecting some fate I could not remember living through. They turned their heads in perfect unison, eyes glowing faintly, as if lit from inside by dying embers. Their voices overlapped into a single drone that rattled the ceiling panels. "Doctor, stay! Relieve us!" I bolted, running through the rows, but no matter how far I went, the corridor of beds stretched endlessly forward.
The monitors beeped somewhere far off, always just out of reach, guiding me like cruel stars. My shoes slapped against the tile, echoing like I was sprinting inside a tomb. Then, ahead, a door, plain, unmarked, my only exit. I lunged for it, slammed through, and found myself in the morgue. The temperature dropped instantly. My breath fogged, swirling white in the dim fluorescent glow. Drawers lined the walls, each labeled. My heart stopped when I read them. Every drawer bore my name, some marked with dates already passed, others with dates that hadn't come yet. One drawer rattled, then another. Soon the entire room shook as all of them banged from the inside, fists pounding, begging to be let out. I pressed against the far wall, trembling, when one drawer slid open on its own. The metal screeched. Inside lay another version of me, eyes open, skin gray. She sat up, movement stiff, and swung her legs over the edge. In her hand, she held the clipboard, pristine and waiting. She extended it to me, her voice low. Final. Clock in. I shook my head, tears spilling. I won't. I'm done. I'm not on duty anymore. She stepped closer, and suddenly all the other drawers burst open at once. The room filled with dozens of me, each holding clipboards, pens scratching without pause. Their eyes burned into me. Their voices rose in a deafening chant. Sign! 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 I dropped to my knees, hands over my ears, but the sound burrowed straight into my skull. The floor shook violently, lights overhead flickered, then shattered, plunging the morgue into near darkness. Only the glow of the clipboards remained, illuminating hundreds of hands reaching for me. I screamed. Whether in defiance or surrender, I'll never know. Just as one clipboard was forced into my hands, the pen pressed itself into my fingers. The page was blank, save for one line. Shift begins. My hand moved against my will, the pen scratching. I stared in horror as letters formed, each stroke mine, but not mine. Doctor, my name, on duty. The moment the last letter was written, every other version of me froze, clipboards dropping in perfect unison. The morgue went silent, utterly still. And then the cold deepened, unbearable, swallowing me whole. That's the last thing I remember before waking here, alone, badge still on my chest. It still reads, on duty. And no matter how many times I tear it off, it always returns. My shift never ends.